What's up, guys? We're gonna Real Beats, and today I'm gonna be showing you guys 3 things you can do to make your melodies more interesting. If you guys haven't subbed already, turn on, you should do so because it does help it a lot. Just hop right into it. So first things first, we're just gonna grab in a scale, and I think I'm just go like an A minor, just because it's just gonna be easier for people to follow along. All right, and then we got some sounds up here. I'll go through those as we go through each sound. All right, so let's just hop into the first one. All right, so here's our first sound. Now the sound isn't that important. So usually when people make a melody, right, they just create their chord, right, and they kind of experiment with the second one, and whichever one sounds good, they just keep moving on, right? And that's probably why a lot of people have beat block, because if you do that so many times, you're gonna start getting the same exact melodies. So we want to start with a different approach. So I'm gonna maybe start down here, and what we can do with our first note is hold shift and go up 5 notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And we land here. So from here, there's multiple things you could do. I'm gonna just show you 2 because they're the ones that I personally use. You could just create a chord like this, and you can start messing around with the octaves, right? And these both will give you different sounds, all right? But what I like to do is just go back to the root. It's very easy. Pull this up an octave, copy it, pull it up an octave. All right, simple as that. Now, you could combo this however you want. This is just what I'm doing. So now we need some filler notes. Now, without having to get too creative, all you have to do, right, is just look at the closest half steps to your bass note, right? And which is the F and the E. All right, so we can fill those in, and again, you could combo these how you want. You could pull one down. It's all up to you. I'm gonna just do it like this, right? And now we want to offset this. Okay, so I usually like to put the first one, like cut it in half, and then these I like to do something like this, and then as you can see, we can just kind of like strum it up. But of course, there's a million ways to do this, right? So let's just play it real quick. All right, sounds pretty good. And I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit, maybe even strum it up. Okay, so this next part is gonna be very easy. So we just wanna highlight, hold shift, click and drag, okay? And then we just go back down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it fits perfectly. And now we're landing back on our A. So at some point, you don't have to do this exactly the way I'm doing it, but at some point, right, if you don't start on your root, you probably want to land on your root somewhere throughout these chords. Just you don't have to do that, but most of the time it'll sound pretty good if you come back to your root somewhere throughout. All right, so now I'll just play the whole thing real quick. Okay, so you see it sounded good, but it sounded a little bit weird. So in the next part, we're gonna just add some variations so we can string them together a little bit better. All right, so now we're gonna just use some variation. Now, these are a little too close, so I wanna spread it out just a bit and make this melody a little bit longer. So what I will actually do here is just copy all this over, right? And I'm just giving y'all the most bare bones basic ways of doing this. If I was actually making a beat, like without recording a video, I would definitely do something different and experiment a lot more, but I'm just trying to give y'all a template that you can follow when you have beat block or whatever. So we're doing this. Now, all you really need to do is change like the half notes, right? And you can change this top note. So just these 3 for variation is all we really need to change. So for this one, we could just delete this, right? And we could play around with these notes a little bit. So maybe we can move these over, and this can be our new like ending note. And let's just throw that note in. And oh, look at that. It's the same note as our bass note. Okay, so let's play this and see how that sounds. All right, simple as that. So as you can tell, it's probably gonna be the same over here, right? Move this over, we could delete that one. And look, once again, it's the same note as our root, right? And you can see how these things, they work all the time, right? Because they're like technical things you can do. So let's play the whole thing. Now you see how they're more connected, because the first two, and I'll just copy them over, for example, you can see it was kind of like a super harsh change, right? Right, it was like a weird little transition there. All right, but that's it for the variation. You know, just that little change can kind of connect them, right? So let's move on to the next little tip. Okay, so with this part, we're gonna be doing accents or just like a counter melody. Now, what I like to do is pretty much just use the half steps to start, and then you can obviously go outside. Right now, some people may be like, oh, this is, you know, it's the same notes, right? Even if you change the octave, it's the same notes and you don't have much to work with. Well, that's a lie, because just because, here, let me actually make this a lot smaller, right? So we can kind of go. So just because this C, right, is the same as this C doesn't necessarily mean it's the same frequency, right? And in fact, it's not the same frequency, right? It's the same note, but it is not the same frequency. And I can pull out an EQ real quick, but I'm not gonna do that because I could just show you with colors. So let's just do red, right? So the hue will represent the actual key, so C, right? Ignoring the six and the octaves, the hue is the C, right? And as you can see right here, we have so many different shades of that C or that hue, red, right? We have dark red. You can see we got all, you can look at the names here, right? And you have all type of different names for these, right? And this just represents the octave, right? So now you have access to so many more notes, right? And if you just kind of change your mentality of how you look at octaves, it'll open up a world of so many different melodies you can make, right? And I'm gonna just leave it at that. I'm not gonna go into detail. All right, so that's all I really want to explain. So now let's go ahead and actually make something with this. All right, so now I just want to show you a method that you can use to kind of use what I talked about earlier. So just for example, I like to use the half steps just because it's just easier to start with, but you can obviously go outside of those. Don't think that's the only thing you could do. So what I would do is just kind of do this in order. So we could do something like this, right? And then you can kind of mess with the octaves. Probably pull this up. All right, you could just pull each, and you could do however you want. I'm just doing it in this order. Right, and if you want to use the same notes, you can. Right, so that's pretty much like the method I'm gonna use. So now I'm gonna just go in and try to actually make something that goes with the chords that we have. So I'm gonna kind of shrink this down a bit. Okay, so I'm kind of hearing something right here. So maybe let's try this. Let's pull it up an octave. Pull this C up an octave. And then this B. Maybe we can stretch this out. Maybe one more time. And I'm hearing the note right here. So maybe we could try, let's make a chord backwards from this B, and let's hit this G and see if that sounds good. Okay, I like that. And maybe we can copy this somewhere. Okay, I like that. All right, so just using the same notes, just different octaves, you can get a really unique little counter melody going. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so here is tip number 3, and here's the sound we're using. All right, so what you want to do here is basically go half step to half step. All right, so go from these half steps to the other ones. Now, you don't have to do that every time, right? Because you'll end up getting the same melody. So what you could do is start implementing build ups. And I talked about this in another video before, right? So you're going to build into the notes, or you can build up to the notes, right? So I'm gonna just go ahead and just make something that I like and like use those methods. So we could just start here. Let's pull this up an octave. Okay, so right here, we can go into our other half notes, right? And let's just use. And I'm gonna just pull this one down. All right, so from here, let's see, let's use these again to start this one, but now let's build into this one so we can maybe do something like, let's see how that sounds. All right, so I'm gonna just go ahead and just copy this, and yeah, so there we have it. So now we can move on to like a bonus tip, I guess. All right, so this is like a bonus. Now, a lot of stuff I talk about in this video, I will make specific videos over just so you can search it. But regarding what we talked about earlier with the colors and stuff, I know a lot of people will have trouble with bass lines, right? When there's only 2 bass notes. Now you're like, oh, just use these 2, but it will get kind of boring if you just put your bass line like this, right? So we could actually copy this. And if you remember what I was talking about earlier, how the octaves, they're, you know, the same note, but it's not the same frequency. So if you want to make it a little bit more interesting, if you have a bass line that's super, like, I guess, boring like this, you could mess around with the octaves to make it seem like it's a different note being played, and then use like support notes that kind of lead into the note. All right, so I'm gonna do the first part with you, and then I'm gonna fast forward on the second part. So let's go up an octave. All right, so right here, we can maybe go down an octave. All right, now remember these notes, we can use those too, right? It doesn't have to be these notes exactly, but that's just what I'm choosing. All right. You can see how it sounds a lot more interesting, right? Than just this. All right. So I'm just kind of go through and we kind of play around with these. All right. All right, so I'm gonna just go ahead and do the second part and show you at the end. All right, so here's the second part, and I didn't really do too much. I just want to kind of showcase the little octave stuff. And obviously this is doing a lot, right? Realistically, I would kind of dial it back a bit, but I'm gonna just show you from here. Right, you can see how it's more interesting than just if I just put one scene. Like, you see how it's like boring it's looking now. All right, but that's it. That's just like the bonus tip, and that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.